All right, welcome back. So last time we ended the stream, where we left off was that um, we finished creating all these auth routes to be able to log in, refresh, log out, sign up, and interact with our database as a user. So right now, users aren't able to actually do anything, but now it's time to start building out the front end so that they're actually able to log in. So far, all that we can do is go into Postman and do this manually, but we need to be able to connect this to our front end in order to have a working application. So that's going to be the next section. A lot of this is going to be set up by starting to set up our Redux store and everything as well. So we're going to be looking at plenty of documentation today. So before I get started, I'm going to go ahead and shut off my screen and then start getting a couple things set up on my end. First things first is to share this link with people who might be interested in watching. All right, does my audio still look good? It's a little bit quiet. Let me actually turn it up. All right, I don't actually have a place to put my microphone, so it's just sitting on top of the desk. So hopefully the quality isn't too bad. All right, so we should be good with that though. Let's start taking a look. All right. So we have our Dos Santos Apartment Homes app. And now the next portion that we want to do is our last proof of concept, which is creating a login sign up portal. Maybe there should be more things onto here, but once we have this portal, then there shouldn't be anything that we can't do. Um, the last portion of what I want to focus on today is after creating the login sign up portal and hopefully getting the Redux store set up as well. I'm considering expanding the complexity of my database because we're going to DB diagram and we take a look at what this looks like right now. It's very simple. So this is what our current model looks like, and I actually want to expand this. On my free time, I was taking a look and seeing if I could find one, find a more built out property management diagram, and this is one thing that I found that I was like, wow, this is gonna be really useful. There's some things here that I don't really care too much about, but there's a lot of things that I do care about, and it also has this it has the relationships, like is this one to many, many to one, what type of relationships are we working with here? I don't really remember seeing too many to many relationships though. If they did, it's just through a through table, so it's probably marked like this. So yeah, table parking to table units would be a many to many relationship. And inside of that, they went ahead and created a through table with some additional um, things that they should be keeping track of. So like not necessarily. We'll consider this like an upgraded through table. Excuse me. So that's going to be the last portion of what I'm going to be focusing on if I have the time. So for now, let's go ahead and get this app running and see, kind of see what our first steps are going to be. npm run start server. Yes, let's go ahead and actually run. Um, let's start up Postgres. So start Postgres, not Walmart. Don't necessarily need that. Data service, PostgreSQL start. Somehow, after drinking coffee, my throat got a lot more irritated or phlegmy. It's usually the opposite if I have phlegmy throat. Usually I drink coffee to make it not so bad, but weirder things have happened. So first I did start server, and now I want to start off server. Let's see if I have the name correct. There we go. So our server is running on port 8000, all servers running on port 8001, and we'll run npm run build watch, which is going to go ahead and serve the front end. Um, this is going to be using, what is it, Nodemon, and Nodemon, no, excuse me. Nodemon hosts a server. Webpack is what compiles it in order for it to run on the internet, pretty much on like Chrome. So on browser, Webpack is going to have a lot of the things that allows JavaScript to work properly in that environment, and let us use like ES5, ES5, ES6 syntax, and also use Babel RC so that even in older versions of Chrome or Mozilla or Internet Explorer, it's also going to run the same. Um, so let's go ahead and jump onto localhost 8000, and we can see our app is here, and we have no way of signing in. So we're going to go ahead and excuse me, add a sign up button over here. Um, but before we do that, let's go ahead and start building out our Redux store, because I'm going to be using Redux to hold a lot of this information across this entire localhost 8000 server. And let's see, React Redux. So let's get started. Let's just look up Redux itself and not React Redux because they're two separate libraries. Let's get started. Let's go ahead and install Redux first. Yeah, let's take a look at the documentation a little bit. Import create store from Redux. This is a reducer, counter reducer. Switch, store subscribe. So this is definitely more just Redux. Let's take a look at React Redux. So we have our React DOM, and import provider. Cool. So this is what we're going to want. So yeah, looks like we do just need to React Redux for now. We have these three terminals running our application, and let's go ahead and install React Redux and start following this documentation. So this provider with the store, this is going to be the main component that surrounds our entire application, because you can see here. Let's go ahead and jump into this folder or this file, server app.js. We can see here we have our React and our React DOM, and we have our render that's going to be rendering our routes over to our app document, our app ID on inside of our public. So I'm having a real hard time talking today. My apologies, but this HTML is what's going to be displaying everything. And here inside of our body, we can see we just have one line that says, okay, inside of our body, we have this div with an ID of app. That is going to be found by this right here, and it's going to show our routes. It's going to show our routes component right here. That's going to display inside of the app ID div. Now, next thing here is that we actually don't need this history anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and comment this out. Maybe it'll be useful later, but this is more when outside of my streams, I attempted to mess around a little bit with the routes. So we'll take a look at that later, because that's something I didn't properly go over yet, and that's the only thing that I haven't done inside of the live stream. Anyhow, for now, we just need these routes, and we're going to go ahead and surround this routes, which is going to contain our entire application that we can see right here. We're actually going to go ahead and surround it one more time in another component. And that component is going to be this provider component that, which means our entire application is going to be surrounded with React DOM, is how I like to think about it. And we'll have this global state, I guess, that we're going to be passing through our entire application that we're going to always have access to. So we're going to need provider, and we're also going to need store. So we're going to have to create that later. Provider. Oh. Store is equal to store. Yes. And now we can save this and create our store folder. Inside of our store folder, we're going to have an index.js. And inside this index.js, this is where our Redux is going to live. This is going to be where all the magic is going to actually be happening, and it's just being called in at this final step before the final render. So now I have some example on how to use hooks inside of the actual functional component, but we're not going to worry too much about that right now. Let's take a look at this quick start. Let's see. Add slice reducers. We're going to file name source app store.js, import the configure store API from the Redux toolkit. We'll start by creating an empty Redux store and exporting it. So when I learned Redux, we didn't use this, but if that's what the documentation says, I'm going to trust it and say this is how I should be building it. So let's go ahead and install this Redux toolkit and go ahead and paste this in here. So now we can see here inside of our store index.js file, we are exporting this configure store with an object with a key value of a reducer, with a key of reducer value of an object. And now how do we work with this? This creates a Redux store and automatically will configure Redux DevTools extension that you can so that you can inspect the store while developing. Cool. And now we want to do this. Cool. Now to create a Redux state slice, add a new file named counterslice.js. In that file, import the create slice API from the Redux toolkit. Creating a slice requires a string name to identify the slice, an initial state value, and one or more reducer functions to define how the state can be updated. Once a slice is created, we can export the generated Redux action creators and the reducer function for the whole slice. Let's create slice and create reducer APIs. Use immer inside. It allows us to write mutating update logic that becomes correct. Gonna take a few minutes to make sure I understand what's going on here. counter reducer. Okay, so inside here is where we're going to be compiling all the reducers, and in their case, a counter reducer. And here's what they call a counter slice. And the name of this file is called counter slice and counter reducer. Okay. Naming convention is a little bit interesting. Um, so let me see if I understand this. Import create slice from the Redux toolkit, and we're going to be exporting. We have an export default down here and two exports. We're going to be exporting counter slice and counter slice.actions, but the default is going to be counter slice.reducer. I'm gonna need to just copy and paste this in and kind of start working around. Um, hmm. My confusion comes from actually not using this Redux toolkit before, but it looks like this is the more ideal, better way to do it, which is another good example on why referencing just your old code that you may have learned from some other source is not always the best option. Checking the documentation is going to show kind of what's more up to date, because this is all very new to me, and it may be a little bit slower to start it up, but um, I have all the time in the world, so it's good to learn the most recent way to do things. And because I already know how to do the old ways as well, using thunks, manually setting up my thunks and everything like that, I'll be familiar with it if a company that I work for uses it. But let's go ahead and try to start working with this Redux toolkit. So with the Redux toolkit, it looks like after my store is configured, which seems a bit simpler than it was before, um, now creating my reducer, the format looks a lot different. So we'll see how much issues we come into. So inside of my store folder, I'm going to create a new file called, what do they call it? Counter slice. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and use this because I need to make sure that I'm able to just import this default version first and really try to understand what's going on. So now I have this reducer called counter, which is being imported from, for me, what this is just going to be from counter slice. Okay. So let's take a look at what my counter slice looks like. Create slice from Redux toolkit. Cool. After we import in the create slice, we now want to define um, our actual reducer. and say counter slice is equal to the create slice function, which is going to go ahead and take in an object. This object is going to be the only thing that's passed into create slice, so that's good to know. So now we got a bunch of key value pairs. We have the name is counter. We have the initial state is just an object with a value 0. We have the reducers, which I'm going to assume are the actions. So let's see, actions would be increment. So Redux Toolkit allows us to write mutating logic in reducers. It doesn't actually mutate the state because it uses the immer library, don't know what that is, which detects changes to a draft state and produces a brand new immutable state based off of those changes. Okay. So state value +1. Okay. Decrement -1. Increment by amount is going to allow you to pass in the okay, so this still uses action.payload, so that's something that I'm familiar with. So when we're saying export these functions right here, um, counterslice.actions. So counterslice, which is what we define here, dot actions is going to hold all of our object that's defined here in the reducers section of like increment, decrement, increment by amount, and we're going to be able to export these to actually use them inside of our functional components. So that's really interesting. I would say this is probably a lot better, but it's just going to take some time to get used to. So we'll continue to work through it and see how it goes. For now, I need to take another sip of coffee. All right. So let's see. I'm gonna take this out and okay. Now, if we want to go ahead and actually use this inside of our component, let's take a look. We use Redux state and actions in React components. Okay. So we can have our React Redux use selector, use dispatch. I don't necessarily. Okay, let's see. So these are going to be hooks. So we have useSelector, useCount equals useSelector, where state.counter.value. Let's see, counter slice. So we're importing it here, or we can use dispatch increment or dispatch decrement. And where's dispatch being defined? Dispatch is use dispatch, okay. So dispatch is going to allow us to use our actions, and useSelector is going to be to count is equal to use selector state dot counter dot value. And if we take a look up here, reducer is going to have this counter right here. So this part, I'm just going to keep it exactly the same. I don't know if this name is where it's pulling this from. I'm going to assume it is. I'm going to assume this is where we're actually defining the name counter, where we're able to access it use right here by saying state.counter. But now inside of our counter, we have like this counter is going to be an object with a key value pairs, and now we have to select the actual value inside of that, which is going to be equal to the count. So that's interesting. So I can so that makes sense that this is how we get the value. So count is going to be equal to the actual value. Okay, we use count. Okay, so count just displays, and excuse me. So count is just displayed here inside of a span. Let's go ahead and create a new component. This is going to be called counter. Counter.js. Import this in. I don't have any CSS styling on it. That's okay. Styles from modules. Okay. All right. There is a nice way that we're able to do individual, put each of this like about us, contact us into a folder, and inside of that have a separate CSS file to really customize the styling. That may be something I get into later, but not right now. Um, all right, so now that we have this, I wanted to just test and make sure that this works. So inside of our inside of our home page, we have our nav bar, our divs. I'm going to go ahead and import it right here. Um, import counter from counter. Let's go ahead and save this and see. This is just going to work out of the box like this. From what I can see, it seems like it should. But should and will are two different things, especially I'm trying to learn something new. So right now it seems like it's not displaying. Let's go ahead and check and see what's going on. Cannot find module counter slice. Let's go and take a look. Counter slice, increment decrement from counter slice. And it's inside of our store, not inside of the same folder. And let's see how I want to do this. We have this export right here, but can I just go into here? I want to import everything into my index.js so I can just kind of compile it all. But maybe that's not too good of an idea. Maybe we should keep them more separate just to not mix buckets as much. So let's go ahead and change this to, let's get out of this folder, go into store, and go into counter slice.js. Resave that, refresh, and let's see what we get. Cannot find module counter slice, counter slice.js. Let's see. Export. Import, decrement, increment, store. Inside here, we have a export. We have like here we have an export default of the reducer, and we also have these export of increment, decrement, increment by amount, which is being destructured right here. So from what I understand, I should still be able to import just like I wonder if it's because of an object instead of an object. We should be able to have access to this increment and decrement. Um, let's see. Let's go and take a look. Export default. Let's see. Import in here. Import my class, my other class. This is what we're doing here. Then import. See, import, import, import. You go to console, counterslice.js 24. So searching the bottom, it's saying that I believe it's saying that it's not finding these increment decrement functions from my store. And we know this route is right because autofill. Um, we're not able to import increment and decrement. Webpack missing module. Okay. Cannot find module. Counter slice. Did I just forget to save? I may have just forgotten to save. No. Counter slice just 23. Counter slice dot reducer. Export default counter slice dot reducer. Hmm. Check the documentation again. The counter slice dot reducer is being exported, and obviously we can just import it without using an object, and it should just be globally. It should just be accessible like this. And counter reducer is being placed into our reducer here. Counter reducer from counter slice JS. Yes. You import React. We have use selector and use dispatch from React Redux. We have increment and decrement that's being imported from the counter slice JS. It's located right here. From here, we have our export function counter. We have our count is equal to use selector. That's giving us access to this Redux state. And we have a dispatch function that's being accessed with use dispatch function of React Redux. And so now instead of a return, we have a div inside of a div, which has a button that's using dispatch increment and dispatch decrement. So nothing here looks too strange. We have a count that's being shown here. And inside of our home page, we just have an import of our counter. Let's see, we have Redux.js toolkit and we have React Redux. We have configured the store, configure store with the toolkit right here. And then provide the Redux store to React by defining the store, the provider inside of our app.js. So we have routes. We have that surrounded by provider. And store is equal to store. It's being imported from store index.js. Yes. As of React 18, version of React am I using? React v17. When did 18 come out? When when was this? In any case, route store provider. Export on the app. We don't need this history. Or create slice. Name is counter, initial status value. We have a reducer, so it holds all of our actions. And then we have an export for all of the actual functions of all of our actions. And then we have an export default of our actual reducer. That reducer is then imported into our store.js file. Store.js. I don't feel like it matters too much if it's index or store.js. Let's see. First, start importing it. Counter reducer. Excuse me. Yeah, so this is just not working out right now. I'm not sure if it has to do with this. If you install Redux, React Redux, Redux are two different packages. Say cannot find module counter slice. I was saying it's not able to find this counter slice dot reducer, but like anything other than that would be I'll find module counter slice, but what pack missing module? Let's see. Importing node externals, webpack node externals, import it, context, export, node externals. So is this inside the module folder? No. Interesting. I've not seen this. Oh, successful when I open up the browser, it gets following error, cannot find module. Module exists, connect to actual URL. Oh, that's different from the problem I'm having. Just look up a cannot find module. Hmm. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this counter slice isn't really an npm package or anything. Just can't find counter slice. Cannot find module export default. Specified relative path to the module. The path is relative to the directory. Firmware requires perform in your case. Did I require it incorrectly? Let's see, components. Hmm. Cannot find module counter slice at webpack missing module counter slice JS. Okay, so this error, does that mean it does not have to do with this counter at all? It looks like it doesn't. Just gonna reinstall these two. Oops. Just do create slice, create slice. Okay. If I take out this line, then there should be no errors. This should be able to run completely fine. Nope, it's just reading this line and it's just saying, okay, there's no module here that we can really work with. So, counter slice.js, create slice. Yeah, this isn't being used, so if I just don't include this in here at all, let's see. So if counter slice JS has absolutely nothing in it, will it still break? Cannot find module counter slice. Store counter slice JS line 23. So is this just let's see. Field browser doesn't contain store app store counter slice does not exist. Can't resolve. Did I have it camel cased? This is not camel cased. I'm just gonna say no just because apparently I just had everything wrong. So that means I can save that, undo all this, bring in counter, restart, build watch. Counter slice does not exist. So where am I saying counter slice? It's building with one warning as counter. Export default imported as counter was not found in counter. Possible exports counter. What is this? Inside home, counter. There we go. All right, cool. Now it looks like we're finally on the right track. So now if they refresh this, now I get some new errors, but I'm happy to see that. Can I read properties undefined reading get state? Let's take a look. Get state, get state, get state. How do I get state? So the provider. Provider unable to get properties. Okay. Uncaught typer cannot read properties undefined. Reading get state. Provider JS20. Oh. Hmm. So I'm not really sure where this error is really coming from. An error occurred in the provider component. Consider adding an error boundary to your tree to customize our handling behavior. I really add store into the routes. So this is how I can tell that I have not been coding in front end very much. This is a really simple error that I just kept overlooking. Okay, so now it looks like that works, and we're able to increment and decrement. Cool. So, all right, now we have a working application. Both issues were just writing things on the proper line. Um, so yeah, I'm glad it was really just as simple of an error as that. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and let's see, git add git checkout. Let's go ahead and create a new branch, Redux. Um, Git commit, um, Redux added to React, git push, origin, Redux. Okay, now we did that. Now we can go ahead and just commit this change. All right. Now we added the Redux state. I'm not even 100% sure if we're going to need it for our login for the time being. I feel like we should need it. Yes. Okay. Yeah. We're still going to need it, but let's go ahead and actually start building this component. Um, let's see. New file. Let's see. Let's see. Auth.js. And instead of this auth.js, I actually want to make login and sign up kind of do very similar things. RFCE, I don't think do I have this? Perfect, nice. Okay, so that's just a little hotkey thing. I didn't have it for a while. Not sure why, but yeah, just created a functional component using RFCE. Thank you to my extension, ES7 plus React. I believe this is what's doing it. This snippet tool, really helpful, saves time. So I have this auth functional component now, and I'm going to have an export of like um okay, let's just start building it out and then I'll try to see if I can think through it as I build it out. So for now we have our React functional component, and inside here let's go ahead and just try to imagine kind of how we want this login page to look like. I want it to be really, really simple. So let's just move on to Excalidraw, clear this out, and start with our home page here. So we have our home page, it's probably something around this big. And all I want to do is I want to leave this nav bar at the top here, nav bar, and I want just this centered rectangle in here. And, spacing, maybe we can say this is like um, REM2, no, maybe like REM like 3. And let's say for this, min width of like, maybe like 800 pixels or so. And this right here is going to be this height right here. And let's see, right here, min height, maybe, I think it doesn't need to be much bigger than 400 pixels. It's going to be really simple. I'm going to have login, password, email, password right here, copy, paste it over here, log in, sign up. And then we'd have some type of like extra large Dos Santos arms, something like this. And I'm gonna need to make this like make these like logos or icons or whatever this is eventually as well. But I'll do that at a later time. For now, I'll just use nice big text. So I feel like it just wants to look something like this. Nice and simple. Okay, cool. So now we have an idea of what this should generally look like. Um, yeah, let's go ahead and start building it out. So now we have our div, and we know we want a div inside of here that's spaced out a certain way. So first, our nav bar is going to be sitting up here. So we can import navbar, import navbar from navbar. And let's take a look at our contact us page. I'm going to take the same styling. So contact us, div navbar, function, return, function, return. Why is the spacing off? That's some interesting spacing. I prefer. I do prefer two spaces on my thing. How do I change this? Space settings. Ooh, just messing everything up. Okay, let's not worry about it too much. And then using tab size 2. This is probably the least important thing I could be doing right now, but okay. Now that I look at it like this, though, I feel like I do maybe I do like spacing of 4 rather than 2 more. Um, why am I spacing? I need to figure out how to configure that better later, just more consistently. But in any case, if the spacing changes, not too big of a deal. Let's see. Div, we're gonna have the nav bar first, and then after the nav bar, we want this there to be the spacing in between these two. And I think I can go ahead and place those inside of this div right here. And then we can give this like an ID is equal to, let's just say, um, auth div. Terrible name, but that's all right. I actually could just call this auth div, but I don't really know how to do that without something like CSS components. Let me take a look. CSS npm CSS loader. CSS loader versus style loader. Which one loads faster? CSS loader takes CSS file and returns CSS with imports and URL. Resolve via require functionality. It doesn't actually do anything with the return CSS. Style loader takes CSS and actually inserts it into the page so that the styles are active in the page. They perform different operations, but it's often useful to chain them together like Unix pipes. For example, if you're using the less CSS preprocessor, you could use. That looks crazy. This loader reads in a CSS file as a string. You can replace it with raw loader, get the same effect in a lot of situations. Since it just reads the file contents and nothing else, it's basically useless unless you chain it together with another loader. Style loader takes the styles and creates a style tag. Style loader Okay, style loader, style CSS, body. Need to configure Webpack. Need to combine style or CSS loader and add the loader into the Webpack config. This is something I'm going to look into more later, but not right now. Let's see. Save this into here. Take a look at that later. I'm not going to get into that. For now, I'm just going to give an ID of authdiv. And inside of my style CSS, let's go ahead and create authdiv. Authdiv. So instead of authdiv, we're going to have display of flex. And then we're going to have top margin, margin top, 3em. Not that much, but just enough space. Rem. R should be relative. E is just rem versus em. Em is relative to the parent element's font size. Em where you have to make more scaling and the font rest. Use rem when you need to, according to the root. There, you can use R. EM is relative to the parent's font size, so if you want to scale the element size based on the parent size, use EM. Is relative to the root HTML font size, so if you wish to scale the element size based on the root size, no matter what the parent size is, use REM. Yes, so I do want to use REM in this case. So we'll have three REM. I believe HTML's default is like 16 or 18 pixels. Um, REM default. Common default browser 16 pixel, but user-defined preferences may modify this. Okay, cool, no problem. So I have a margin top of 3 REM, and what else do we want? Um, oh, we want the content centered. We want the min height 400 pixels, min width 800 pixels, and I would say high width. Generally we want it to be maybe like 70% of the screen. 70 if you width. Let's just go ahead and save that for now. See what it looks like. Um, yeah. Let's take a look. So this is all going to be in the auth.js, and this isn't being displayed anywhere. Navbar. Oh, excuse me. So later, I want this login sign up thing to change based on whether they're logged in or signed up. So this is going to be a good example of when we want. Do we want to use store there? Maybe there's a couple things that we can. Excuse me. There are a couple of ways to go about it. For now, let's just leave it to say login. Save that. And now we have a way to access an auth route. So now inside of our routes, we should go ahead and define route path equals auth element equals auth. And now import auth from auth Take out navbar from here because we don't use it. We don't need any use effect for the time being, so I can take that out. It's not being used. Save this and check to see what we got so far. How are we breaking our code? Nothing breaking so far. I don't see this listed up here. Um, increment decrement is just chilling. Let's see. Home, about us, contact us, navbar, JS. Now it does have an extra link onto it. About us, contact us. It's not like it's scrolled over or anything like that. And access off. I cannot. Let's take a look. So our reports are served, and for some reason I closed Webpack in order to do my git push. So let's run build watch again. Refresh, and now we have our login. Now I click on this, we get a broken screen, so let's take a look and see what's going on. Navbar is not defined. That is not good. We should always define navbar. Let's go and save that again. Refresh. Now we can see our navbar's color is now changed and we have an empty div. And then let's just go ahead and say bg color equals, let's just do the same, 293241. Save. See how big our box is. React does not recognize the bg color prop. So, oh yeah, because that's that's something that we're actually passing in. So let's go ahead and say style is equal to background color, and then 293241. Save this. Okay, so now we can see it's not centered at all. It's not centered on the page. Um, let's see. I think the spacing is it's not bad, but actually maybe I just want to say like 150 pixels or something. So instead of having this based off of REM, let's go ahead and have this 150 pixels. Save that, and then from there, now we want to center this. How do we center it? If this is a flexbox, a flex container itself, let's see. One thing I can do is I could just make this class of like um, flex display flex. And do I just want to add more styling onto here? Do I just want to center things as well? I'm trying to think of the application, and I feel like things are generally going to be centered. So I am going to also say align items center. The align items or align content? I have a really bad memory if in case anyone was not sure about that. So justify contents center. That would work. I'm going to call it center flex. Now I'm going to go back into counter. No, auth. And then I'm going to put this with the class name equals um, center flex. When I do that, let's take a look. That is not the interaction that we want. So left and right. So we want this to align our items vertically. So flex direction. column. Let's see. They're aligned, then flex. That at that point, justify content isn't going to work. We're going to need to align it vertically, which looks horizontal. Let's see. Align items. Okay. And now it'll expand, it'll get smaller, it'll do things, and it doesn't look too bad. I don't like how wide it is actually. I'm going to change this to 50 view. Change that. Okay, I like that a lot better. Yeah, I'm going to change my playlist too. Okay, cool. And now I feel like I want to make this background just a little bit gray and this box of this login box just a plain white. So let's go get an off-white for the background. Let's see. I'm just gonna add a little bit of a shadow to it. I want to say 3 pixels isn't enough. Let's just do 15. 15 down, 15 over, and 15 feathering. 50 pixels feathering. Oh. 3. Oh, higher feathering, less actual. It is spilling over a little bit, but I think it's fine. See, auth div. So I should go ahead and just set all the styling in here. Auth div, background, color. Um, what else? Box shadow, 10 pixels, 10 pixels, 10 pixels, and 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Extra feathering. And what else? Also, I want a border there. Let's add a border radius of like 5 pixels. Just round it out a little bit, and put an actual border on it. And yeah, we should be using our color palette. Um, where did I save the color palette? Me not saving it here was definitely a big mistake. Check our color. Just check our history. Control J maybe? No. Okay. Check our history and color here. Use. Share with Google. Log in. Taking quite a while to log in. Just refresh it, see what happens. There we go. Profile. Cool. This one. Open palette. Just copy this and let's paste it into our actual MVP statements here. Copy, paste. It's not pasting very well. There we go. All right. I guess we could put this as a background color. And for the border, we can use this color. Color, 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 color. Let's go ahead and save that. See how it looks. Actually, I don't see any color changes. Worries me. Okay. That looks terrible. Okay, and this inline styling is going to override whatever's inside, so I'm going to go and take that out. Just use what's inside. Refresh again. Okay. Now the color difference isn't that big, but I guess it's enough. But that border, the actual shadowing, that does not look good at all. It should be much more subtle. I thought 3 pixels would just be way too subtle, but honestly, maybe that is really enough. Ew, so harsh. Go ahead, double it up, save it. Okay, there's a lot more feathering. I don't like how dark the color is still, so I'm gonna bring this up. Maybe this is good. Refresh this, and now we just got a soft little border around it. That looks good enough to me. The border width, I'm gonna make it bigger. Let's go ahead and make it like 2 pixels. Again, don't want it harsh, just want it to actually exist. Nothing. 5 pixels. Wait a couple seconds. Hmm. Okay, so this is the auth div, which is what I want to change. We're doing it like this. The answer is no. It says border. Border style. Border color. Border width. Okay. Nothing's changing still. It looks like it's still compiling. Go ahead and actually check the styling on here. So it has all the settings on here. So I guess I'm just not using border width correctly. Can't say border width 5 pixels. Hmm. Hmm. Border solid. Okay. Okay, so like 3 is pretty much the default pixel size. Okay, so now there's some type of box. I set a 1 pixel border width. Okay. Now let's go ahead and actually add the text into here. All right. Aside here, we need a div that has. Let me go ahead and show what I'm thinking. Scala draw. Right now, sure, I want it to look like all of this, but to make it happen, I actually need to group these two together to make sure these are actually properly centered. So I'm going to have these two divs right here that I need to space out properly. And then likely I'm going to need these two inside of a div as well and just have all of these completely centered up. So it'll probably more look something more like this. So, all right, so I have my first div, I have my second div, and I have my third div. Cool. I have 1, 2, 3, and this title here. Um, yeah, let's go ahead and add that in as well. H1, I think H2, Dos Santos apartment homes. And auth div should be a flex as well. Auth div display flex, cool. And so now I'm going to have 3 elements that I want align. Was it flex direction? Display, justify constants, align items. I don't know. Let's just go ahead and check the documentation again. I have really bad memory. So flex direction is going to be column. And then I'm going to want align items, center, and then display, what's it called? Justify content, center as well. Go save that. And set of our auth, we have Dos Santos apartment homes. I got a couple of errors. Um, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I don't know how that got missing, went missing. Okay, anyhow, Dos Santos apartment homes. Next, this div is going to have um, some text. Uh, it's going to be email. And then I'm going to have a form. Actually, how should I do this? I need to add in all the form. CS, HTML, React form. I believe I need to have all my inputs inside of the form. So we have a form on submit, this handle submit, and then we have our label, essay, text area, input, value submit. Okay. Yep. So what I actually need to do is modify this a bit. I can't necessarily do this because I need my forms all stuck together. Do I? on submit label, all this jazz. What I might be able to do is have it actually done like this. Hmm. See, form on submit label. Let's go ahead and add in this form into here and first see how it looks. Oof. Okay. Alrighty, so I have this. Okay. What will this look like? Yeah, see, it looks really ugly. I don't like how that looks at all. Also, I'm surprised that H2 and H3 and H4 look pretty much exactly the same and they're really small. I'm gonna assume that I did something on here to change that. I made H2 just really big. Okay. Any case. Oh, excuse me. So I'm surprised everything else just looks kind of out of whack. So off div, off div, off div, off div. Flex direction, justify contents, line items. Oh, that's not what I want. Okay. It can't be modified right now because value is just fixed. So we're gonna have to start using local state in order to start building this out. So use state const const. Let's see. State const info equal info set info equals use state. It's going to be an object. So now it comes to every form. You want to be able to handle each change, which is just going to update the values, and then you're also going to want to submit, which is going to handle this final submit. Um, so on this form, on submit equals handle submit. And then when they submit it, it's going to run this handle submit function with uh with whatever things inside of it. So yeah, we should prevent the default, which I think causes some type of refresh, and instead of that, we want to go ahead and just let's see. Let's get the let's see, what do I want to focus on? The functionality or how it looks? I honestly want to focus on how it looks. Um, so for this page, all we want to really keep track of is in their info, their email, their password. And let's see. See, I don't quite remember how to actually set the value to all of these things. Value equals this dot set state dot value on change equals handle change. I guess it's more normal to have it just stacked like this. It also looks a lot better with a lot less work. The handle submit needs the prevent default, sure. Validate form with user details. All right, so I think I'm gonna have to finish out this button later. The good news is we have the Redux portion set up. This login uh, section just does not look very great, but honestly, I'll probably have to take a look at some examples and some better login forms because I'm not liking how it's looking so far. We'll definitely just try to stack this email and password on top of each other and kind of just make sure that we get this login thing working properly, this login page working properly. And we have a Redux that yeah, we have a Redux store set up so that once we get this section working, we have a working form. We're going to be able to submit that over to our backend to actually start doing the actual validation of creating a new user. But until that time comes, I'm going to be heading out for now. A couple things to do. I doubt I'll be coming on tonight, but hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to finish this portion out. And once we're done with this sign in portal, likely next step is going to be to start making an apartment and creating an apartment with that has a certain number of rooms that are available or not available. Start building out that portion of the app. But thank you so much for joining if you've been here. Take care, and I'll